Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 10th annual Photoville Festival, proudly supported by our lead anniversary partner, Leica Camera USA, and today's program, Teen Storytellers Impacting Change with the International Center of Photography. My name is Jasmine Chang. I'm the Deputy Director here at Photoville, and I focus on our education and community projects. Thank you to everyone for joining us today, students, community members, and thank you all for chiming in on the icebreaker. Now I have so many books and TV shows I want to look into. It's really, really fun to hear everyone and to see everyone here. I'm really excited to welcome you to this panel, as well as to our 10th annual festival, which has over 80 exhibitions all across New York City, from Staten Island to Times Square, to the Bronx, Queens, and Harlem. First, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Lenape. Photoville exhibits visual stories in public spaces across the city of New York, which is located in the traditional homelands of the Lenape, also known as the Stockbridge-Munsee Community, Delaware Tribe, Delaware Nation, and First Nations in Canada. Lenape call their homeland Lenape-Hocking, which includes southern New York State, all of New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and Delaware. We respect and recognize those who came before us and the experiences they had to endure. We commit to understanding how history continues to inform the present and to work on how our organization can keep supporting Indigenous communities. We commit to opening up more space for members of Indigenous creative communities and providing platforms to showcase their stories and ensuring they are compensated for their work. We encourage you all to research, read more into the history of your community and region, and support Indigenous artists. Recently, our Photoville team collaborated with the Lenape Center on this living land acknowledgement and attended a workshop and are forever grateful for their guidance. We look forward to our continued working relationship. Also, before we begin, I want to thank our amazing partners for supporting this program and our festival. We are so grateful for our marquee partners, Brooklyn Bridge Park, New York City Parks, Two Trees Management, Photo Wings, the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, and the Dumbo Business Improvement District. And of course, our 10-year anniversary partner, Leica Camera. Photoville education programs are proudly supported in partnership with Photo Wings and the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. We really want to thank our year-round partner, Photo Wings, for making these panels more accessible. All of our panels, including this one, will be recorded and shared online for future engagement. So you all can share and let people know about this wonderful panel that you have been a part of. So now to the main event. Today is the start of our youth panel series. And over the next 2 weeks, you all will have the opportunity to hear from many youth artists around the city about their stories and photographic process. This is one of 4 panels we'll be hosting. And today we're really proud once again to partner with the International Center of Photography. You'll hear from 4 of their youth artists and have the opportunity to ask them questions. Really encourage you all. I know many of you are classmates and community members. Throughout the presentation, please ask questions and share comments in the chat. Love to see feedback and interaction. We also encourage you all to visit the ICP exhibition in Barretto Point Park in the Bronx. ICP at the Point, Picturing Sorrow and Joy. And now to kick us off with this evening's youth panel, I am pleased and proud to introduce Isabel Figueroa from ICP.
Thank you, Jasmine. I am super excited to be here with you all. And just also want to thank everyone at Photoville, including Laura, Sam, Dave, and all the folks doing tech with us, Skylar. and just say it's been amazing to be in this continued partnership since the beginning of Photoville. So shout out to 10 years and counting, and congratulations on your 10-year anniversary. We are super grateful to be kicking off the educational series tonight with our panel. I personally will never forget my first Photoville, just walking up into Brooklyn Bridge Park, seeing all these shipping containers and this beautiful display of a camera greenhouse by Andre Feliciano. And has so many innovations and creative ways of putting this production together have followed since. So thank you again. And thank you to everyone who's joined us online today as well, our educators, students, friends, and family, and to everyone who helps keep this program going for the next generation of storytellers. We're excited to be here to share the work of our panelists who represent across ICP's community programs, including partnerships with the Point CDC in the South Bronx, as mentioned, the High School of Fashion Industries, and our year-long program, Image Makers. And shout out to our new Image Makers cohort who are also with us in the audience tonight. I must admit, in this great time of change, uprising, and some might even say enlightenment, I am in awe and admiration of these young people. It has been a time of vulnerability, honesty, collective strength, and thoughtful connection. I think this is what they mean when they say we grow through what we go through. And as our teen programs remain online, I am so proud of the connections made by students across state lines and across international borders. It just proves and shows the impact of image making, both as a connection, as the visual storytelling power, and as a change agent. You have all taught me that wherever we go from here, we can go and grow together in community, creating our new norms as society continues to shift. And with that, I also invite you all to check out our Teen Academy and ICP at the Point classes that start this weekend to be part of this wonderful community that continues to grow. We'll share links in the chat, and remember, we are still virtual, which means students can join from anywhere in the country and around the world. As Jasmine mentioned, I also want to shout out the exhibition in the Bronx in Barretto Point Park, which is a historical and significant location for advocacy by the Point Community Center. So definitely see the images our students have up there. We'll also be sharing that link, and join us for another Photoville engagement. We will be doing an in-person activity October 17th, called the LES Local Business Scavenger Hunt with local photographer, LES native and activist Destiny Mata. And in addition to our youth programs, be sure to check out upcoming panels and programs. Even after this one, we've got Joshua Rashad McFadden as part of ICP Talks and Lecture Series. And if you haven't been to the Lower East Side, our new exhibitions are running through January 10th, 2022. So come check out these beautiful exhibitions, which have also inspired this fall's classes: Jillian Laub, Family Matters, Deanna Marcosian, Santa Barbara, and Inward, Reflections on Interiority. We've also got continuing ed classes for the adults and parents out there, so please check out icp.org. There's something for everyone. And with that, why we are all here today. It is now my pleasure to introduce our phenomenal moderator, photographer, advocate, and educator, alum of ICP at the Point, as well as our one-year certificate program, and now lead faculty, Roy Bison.
Thank you so much, Isa. Buenas tardes, good night, good morning, wherever you're joining us from. Isa, your work as an artist and your dedication to our youth across ICP's programming remains an inspiration to me. Your dedication, your drive, all of it, it's a blessing. So thank you, Isa. I also want to thank Lacey Austin, Director of Community Programs, for all of her drive and resiliency as well. And all the community programs, partners, teaching teams, and of course, our students for being the stars that they are. Finally, many thanks to our Photoville family, and happy 10th anniversary, and to many more. As Isa had mentioned, I am a Chicanx documentary photographer and an arts educator from the Bronx. I'm committed to telling stories that often go misrepresented and to challenge misconceptions of my community. I'm constantly photographing from a perspective that is grounded in the struggles and the triumphs of where and who I come from, be it my home in the Bronx or returning to my family in Mexico. My past experience as a student across community programs made me realize how much I want to be able to provide the same safe, supportive, and creative space for other young people In my pursuits now as a photographer and ICP faculty member, I remain deeply committed to our mission of storytelling and social change. In that spirit, it is my pleasure to present our panelists, our next generation of storytellers and change makers. So after I introduce them, I'll ask a series, after I introduce them, they will each read an artist statement. They will show their body of work, and I'll ask a series of questions. And then we'll open up the conversation to y'all for any thoughts, ideas, questions, and for us to build. Right? Without further ado, I'll introduce. Up first, we have Annette Palacios. Annette Palacios is a Chicana photographer working across several genres and themes of identity, family, culture, religion, and otherness to help better understand her heritage and the people she surrounds herself with. Her work usually takes on the form of portraiture. She finds inspiration in the daily interactions between people and their environments and the colors that materialize in nature and on New York City streets. Palacios plans to major in film and television production while at Hunter College to further strengthen her storytelling abilities through moving image and sound.
Thank you, Roy. So growing up, La Virgen de Guadalupe's image, story, and holiness was embedded into my life by my devoted parents. She was consciously displayed throughout her home in various forms, including statues, frames, and prayer cards. She was my introduction into Mexican culture, as is the case for many other Mexican American children. Undoubtedly, since her transcendence into the modern world, her image has been heavily commercialized, prompting her appearance in various forms and places. Yet she remains regarded with the utmost respect and is worn with pride for all that she entails. No Me Desampares ni de Noche ni de Día explores the various ways in which La Virgen de Guadalupe influences my spirituality and manifests herself in my life both literally and figuratively. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Next, we have Ariana Williams. Ariana Williams is a teen activist and organizer based in New York City. As a photographer and filmmaker, Ariana has dedicated their art to creating spaces and telling stories that are often misrepresented or disregarded in mainstream media. Ariana has participated in various programs within Teen Academy at the International Center of Photography, including their year-long Image Makers program. They've had multiple films accepted into a variety of film festivals, including the Girl Improved Film and Television Festival, Gift Fest, winning the Audience Award in 2020 and the Best of the Fest Award in 2021. Throughout their work, Ariana explores common themes of growth, self-reflection within different spaces, and the elaborate interconnections between themselves and those around them. In their photo series, Silent Presence, as well as their film, Eyes Behind the Frame, Ariana has highlighted stories and experiences of Black, LGBTQ+ women, femme-bodied, and gender non-conforming youth. Their work is within research concerning the criminalization that young Black girls experience in New York City public high schools due to their intersectionality. When they're not doing research, Ariana enjoys planning their future to travel the world.
Thank you. It's generational. Through merging aspects of things old and things new, there's a creation of what can be learned and found in the in-between spaces. Throughout these images, I explore what intergenerational Blackness looks like for me through crafting scenarios that personify this. I present things like archival photos and objects from my life, all within the same settings of things that I've created recently. From images of my mom and family from years before I was even born, to hairbrushes and combs that I remember ripping through my hair as a young child. I represent the Blackness that has been passed down to me, mainly through the juxtaposition of a stage setting with either a harsh spotlight or elements of collaging. I chose to layer and collage as a way of reinforcing this message as many times as I can. This project has allowed me the opportunity to create physical depictions like the images radiating the energy between my mom and I. Looking forward, I wish to explore more. Like, what would it look like to explore beyond my immediate family? Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. Up next, we have Isai Velasquez. Isai Velasquez is an Afro-Latino photographer based in Queens, New York. Working primarily as a digital photographer, his work has moved from observational and street photography to exploring abstraction and portraiture. His work takes inspiration from filmmakers like Wong Kar-wai and the A24 Film Company. Isai's most recent work has documented the life of his family throughout the past year. His work has strongly focused on the usage of natural and artificial lighting, vibrant color, and close detail to communicate his emotional connection to photography as a whole and his family. He has previously studied photography in the Teen Academy Image Makers program at the International Center of Photography and Youth Media Video Production at the Downtown Community Television Center. He is currently studying photography at the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Thank you, Roy. So, lighting serves to create a spotlight for my subject. Throughout my photographic journey, lighting has always influenced my perception of photography. As I began photographing within the confined space of my apartment, I gravitated to harsh, contrasting light and details as a way to highlight and hide parts of my home and my character. The more I began exploring portraiture with my family, the more important lighting became. It served its purpose of accentuating the most profound parts of my home and my family to create a spotlight for those most important to my journey. I want to give my grandmother her spotlight. I want to give my grandfather his spotlight, and I want to give my mother her spotlight. And in return for continuing to work, in return for treating me like a son, and in return for raising me by herself. I'm afraid their memories will only last my lifetime, even if I'm lucky enough to pass down their life to the next generation. It's only finite. It's not guaranteed. What life they sacrificed to get me to where I am today is a life not worth leaving up to chance. I need something that is guaranteed. A photo can capture a moment. A photo is something that is guaranteed. A photo can give them their moment in the light. In return for everything they've done, I've shared this project to illustrate my gratitude. And I want to thank them for the everlasting memories. I want to give them an eternity. Thank you.
Thank you, Isai. Up next, and finally, we have Andrew Myro. Andrew Myro is an analog and digital photographer born in New York City and works primarily in their neighborhood of Harlem. They're a student at Hunter College High School, where they photograph for 2 newspapers. Anju has received a photographic education from the Expanding the Walls program at the Studio Museum in Harlem and the Image Makers program at the International Center of Photography. They were part of the Studio Museum in Harlem's first online exhibition, Hearts in Isolation, and a part of the final online exhibition for Image Makers. They also won a gold key for poetry in the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards. Their work has branched into photography of their family in India and Jamaica, along with an examination of their own belonging in Harlem. They have also explored their own gender and racial identities through various photographic projects and writings. Their photography is inspired by a close studying of people they surround themselves with, along with the rhythm of their neighborhood and city. Anju's work is influenced by photographers like Catherine Opie, Latoya Ruby Frazier, and Deanna Lawson.
Thank you. Dress Up Gender is focused on the performative materialization of complex gender identity through gender stereotypes. How do stereotypes shape identity, and how can their breakdown or contradiction reveal the complexities of those identities? Can these representations be only surface level, like the clothes in the photographs? When looking at this project, consider how fashion and clothing play a role in expressing a person's inner experiences with their identity. Through these photographs, I grapple with my own complex gender identity that manifests my gender and how I can test the limits of that identity through almost comical representations of gender. With Dress Up Gender, I combine satire and a thoughtful examination of my experiences with gender. This project is ever evolving and changing and will likely never be finished.
Thank you, Anju. So thank you, Anju, and thank you all for presenting your visions and your statements. So now we'll jump into our questions, and then at the end, we'll hold space for audience questions. Let me quickly jump into gallery view here so I can see everyone. Yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing your visions, again, your statements. Y'all are y'all are insane with the images you guys are making, but also with the techniques y'all are using. Multidisciplined artists for sure. So I think we'll just jump into the first question. Please feel free to answer, as you like, and we'll build off from there. So as all of you are documenting such important personal and social issues, could you tell me a little bit about why you feel it's important for you to explore them in your work, right? So like thinking about what were some of the obstacles and the opportunities you encountered in the processes of making these bodies of work. Right?
I can go first. I think that my work is both like making the social issues that we talk about so often, making them more personal, and also like making my, not like my personal issues, but like what I'm thinking about myself more social and normalizing those kind of discussions. So I think that my photos were really about like both trying to help myself understand how I relate to gender and also trying to like prompt that in other people and like try to like ask them to also think about how they relate to different kinds of stereotypes. And I think like what you said about like obstacles and opportunities, it was definitely a challenge, like the fact that it was so personal. But I think that, as I said, kind of in what I wrote, it's I had to understand that it's never like a finite thing. It's always like my art is always kind of changing, and so nothing that I create is like definitive at any point.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can see how you're allowing yourself to exist in the photographic space and breaking a lot of like stereotypes and giving yourself the room to be and explore every ounce of yourself and even in a way that's celebratory too, right? It's you're fully taking command in the images you're making, and I think that's really powerful, right? Um, do y'all feel like does that resonate with your process as well? Um, I think Ariana, Annette, and Isai, y'all are also working in spaces that feel like studio spaces, right? What is that? What was that process like for y'all, as opposed to, like a process like street photography or more observational documentary work?
Yeah, definitely. I think going off of like what Andrew was saying, and like relating it to that question, it's being that I've been in this space in my room for the past year, the work has become more personal. And then it also has allowed time for me to question the stories that I've seen and who is telling those stories and who gets to tell their stories. And sort of going back to the importance of holding space for like social justice or even just personal work within the wider work is sort of questioning what have I seen already up into my life right now, 17, and seeing that the smallest percentage of photography or any other video or visual storytelling medium doesn't include stories that reflect me and reflect people that I know. So I think holding space to tell what I know, since I'm an expert on my own experiences, has been very reflective and very personal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, sorry, Isai.
No, I'm so sorry. I think also to kind of speak on like the idea of, I guess, like creating like a personal story with your actual photos. I can definitely say, even though I feel like my project isn't as sort of like, I don't know how you might say it, like proactive as far as like speaking for a specific thing, but even though it doesn't actually do that, I think having like a personal story behind it, I would kind of piggybacking off of what Ariana said, sort of like maybe exposing a story out there, or at least bringing my story to light in the hopes that maybe somebody else out there could actually relate to it, or maybe that there would be another sort of like person who comes from like, I don't know, like a single parent household, or a person who comes from like a sort of like a multi-generational household, like in the hopes that maybe through, I don't know, like my personal story, that would help, again, like I said before, other people to kind of like speak on their perspective. And yeah, so I do kind of feel like, I don't know, even like a very personal story, no matter what medium it is, can actually get a message across depending on how you might actually want to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like as I see all of your work, right, as I'm like creating connections, right? Anju, Ariana, you all are holding space for yourselves and exploring different themes. You say you're holding space not only for yourself and your identity, but you're holding space for your family, and you're photographing and you're exploring that relationship between you two, between all of you. And then Annette, I see how you're using your kind of I'm gonna call it a studio space for lack of a better word, right? But your space to explore not only your identity and your family, but a sense of spirituality, right? What was that process like for you, right? Because you're also kind of bringing in all of these layers of reflection, right? Which all of you are doing.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was really important to, get to know how religion and faith have sort of shaped myself, my growing up and my family as one unit. And the project itself, I think I learned a lot. I was able to affirm some of my beliefs and recognize the ways, faith has shaped my life. And this was sort of a first step, I think, in educating myself about specifically Mexican culture and, educating others. Growing up as a child of immigrant parents, I think which is a common story, right? We often feel disconnected from both American culture and Mexican culture, or whatever other culture we're a part of. But as I've grown up and gotten to connect with different aspects of Mexican culture and connect with family from Mexico, I felt that it was important and necessary for myself to explore these aspects more specifically and get to know Mexico as, its own entity, I guess you could say. Yeah.
I mean, so right, as we're talking about our reflections and we're collectively seeing all of your work, is there anything that you feel like stands out as something maybe you didn't flag in your process, right? Now looking at the work and as we're talking about it, is there something that you feel like you came back to consistently in your process that helped you, right, in navigating the space of reflection and navigating the space of exploration of your identity and to tackle some of the stories and negative preconceptions? Right, because I think because I see how you guys are using different tools, right? Like you say in your case, like with lighting, right? You're using lighting as a key tool. And Andrew, you're putting on different accessories, and you're stepping into different spaces physically, right? And Ariana, you're using not only lighting but like cloths and textures and photos and collages, right? What was that like for you to step into a photographic space and to try new tools? What was that like?
I could speak to that a little bit. So just like the process itself, it's really funny because the project itself, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it was my first time collaging, my first time doing heavy digital for a long time. So it's like in that process, it's crazy to think that the thing that kept coming up is like learning from the experience of actually creating rather than like the final product of it. So the process itself being a mistake, being the hours before I had to like submit a final picture and I was in my bathroom, turned off the lights, bought in like a blue light bulb to take a picture, like all of that happened. And then it created this final thing. So like the process of getting there and also being open to trying new things was pretty cool.
That's awesome. You put together all oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I think also to like speak on the sort of like lighting situation as well too. I've never actually worked with heavy lighting as far as like having an entire project dedicated to it and having like at least like one consistent sort of like color theme kind of going through it. So that was definitely a new learning experience because with a lot of the work that I had to do, or at least for this specific project, I was kind of limited to like having like a ring light or having like I guess like my TV light as like a reference example. So it's like to think about it or to think on it right now, it's actually like I actually really did have a fun time doing that because it forced me to kind of use these new sort of tools that I didn't really think I could have used before. And it kind of like, I don't know, like, because again, you're in a confined space for a really long time, you have to kind of get comfortable with your sort of like equipment, or at least like you have to get like find ways to kind of, I guess, like work around whatever you might be trying to do. So that's actually pretty fun to do if you think about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, y'all are super resourceful, right? Oh, Anju, please.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, I think that like the fact that I didn't really have access to like do the projects that I normally do, which are like really focused on other people. Um, it was like it was a very physical experience, especially because I'd never worked with like props like that before, with just myself as like the main sort of subject of the photograph. And I think that I definitely had to learn to be like very patient with myself, and like not force a photograph, or like you can't plan too much. You just have to kind of see like how you feel in that moment in front of the camera.
Where there's a sense of spontaneity, right? As you're like facilitating the space for you to create using the resources that y'all have, and then creating like literal, like what feels like magic out of the powerful images that y'all are bringing out, right? Y'all are wrestling with all of the things around you and then putting it into a frame, right? Which I think also speaks to the fact that in the way that y'all are photographing, maybe y'all don't need like the the most like how do I say, like the most advanced equipment, right? Y'all use what you have to tell the stories and your truths that and it resulted in these powerful images, right? Um, so I think to speak to quickly to the audience, right? As y'all are thinking about even your stories and the way that you would like to navigate those things, think about what's around you and what's intentional, where you can facilitate a space within your space. Um, so as we're talking about your process, right? We're talking about the way that you're developing in your vision and your craft, right? I'd like to know too, right? How how do you feel photography has been impacting the way that you build your community and the way that we are engaging in conversations and social change? How does it go then, right, from the personal, which is also political, to then building into community and building into connecting with others and taking part of this greater dialogue? Do you feel like as you were working through your projects, did y'all often like refer or check in with like a group of people? I mean, even in your class, right? Y'all were on image makers on Zoom, right? So what was like even like the brainstorming sessions or like the community building on this virtual platform when you're thinking about your stories and thinking about how you're gonna plan it? What was that experience like for you in this last semester?
Yeah, I think that having other people that were also creating like incredibly personal work sort of at the same time as me, and who like saw my project from the very beginning, which it looked very different than what it does now. I think it really helped me to keep the project moving. And I think that photography as a whole can be a very accessible sort of medium, if you like look in the right places. And I think that accessibility, people can look at a photograph, it has this ability to connect with people, and build community in that way. It's a very visual form of communication, and I think that really helps people relate to each other and understand each other.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to that point, even what has been the response to your projects, right? As y'all are presenting this, like in your final presentations, to your families and to your friends, what has been the response to the work? Do you
I
feel
guess
like it's been? Oh yeah.
I was just gonna say that I think that I sort of use photography to speak to things that I can't verbalize in a way that totally makes sense to me. So I think that it was really incredible to be able to kind of share that aspect of myself, or that like how I'm thinking, with everyone who I can't just like sit down and explain to them what the project is trying to say. So that was like, yeah, it was really incredible.
sometimes I think like words might not always do it justice, right? And so that image, even just popping it out onto like Instagram or like Twitter, and then beginning to have those dialogues, right? Or just even like in circles with like close collaborators, right? So just thinking, right, as well about this last year as we're reflecting and just reflecting on the creation of your work, and I mean, even as I see your work, I'm like reflecting on the way that this last year has it impacted me as an image maker too, right? How, apart from your practice, right, how did all of these events from the past few years that we're still going through, right, the protesting, the political turmoil that they're facing, and the many other layers of well, events and things we're dealing with, how does that causing you to pivot in your image making practice, and if so, right, like where do you see yourself pivoting to apart from this, right? I think as image makers, right, I see that y'all are responding. You guys are creating and not only responding and reflecting. So in reflecting again, right, how do you feel like you're going to be moving forward? How do you feel like yeah, how do you see yourself moving forward from here?
I feel like this past year has quite literally forced me, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but quite literally forced me to create by myself. And in a great way, like Isai was talking about before, I finally got the chance to have fun with what I was creating. That's one thing. Two, find community. Find community of youth photographers, this being one, has been really amazing because like Andrew was talking about before, people who can see your work from the beginning and where it is now. But definitely those two things have really impacted the way that I create images.
Yeah, I mean, you say?
Oh, no, sorry. So I think also to kind of add on to that point, it's like with my work, I think having to work with the same group of people for like an extended period of time to create like a project too, it made me more and more comfortable with said people, aka my family. It made me more comfortable with actually like asking them to model in my photos, or asking them if they could help me like with a new project, or asking them if they can do like anything that's like photography related. And it kind of does help me, or it did help me transition into college, especially with like now that I have to kind of work with like brand new people who I might meet after, and only have to like, I only get I only get a chance to talk to them for like 5 minutes, and then I have to like, I don't know, do a photo shoot with them. And like having to kind of work again in this confined space for a really long time, it forces you to get comfortable with any new person. It forces you to kind of like think of a brand new way to kind of, I don't know, like create a photo with that person, which it really helped me because I'm not like the most social person. So it's definitely helped expose me to a whole world of new possibilities with photography, which I'm really excited about. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Sort of echoing what Isai said, moving forward, I was really able to learn a lot about myself and myself as a tool, and see myself as an image maker, because I think I was so unfamiliar to the using a digital camera and some of these editing softwares. But because of the image makers program we all took part of the last year, I was really able to learn immensely. And using my, like Isai said, the same group of people as your models, your subjects, I was able to learn about collaboration and being okay with letting people know what my vision is and how I would want them to portray it. I also wanted to speak on the fact, using myself as a tool, right? Self-portraiture. I had never done self-portraiture, and my self-portrait, I think, was sort of the basis of my entire project. So I was really able to appreciate, I guess, myself as a tool moving forward and exploring self-portraiture. Yeah.
I mean, I see how vibrant all of your projects are, your stories are, the layers to it, and how y'all are using, again, the spaces, your resources at hand. I'm also curious in knowing, right, as you guys, as y'all are planning your shoots, as y'all are developing your vision and your stories and the language around it, um, what were some of the inspirations that y'all were like leaning on, or where were y'all uh, you know what did y'all listen to, right? I think at least for me, even like even if I'm photographing in my room, or whenever I photograph outside now, I tend to now listen to a lot of music, and I use that as a premise to the images that I make. Um, I'll pour over a bunch of paintings, and I'll really think about the intentions that those artists had set to make their work, right? So as we're looking at your work, what were some of the inspirations that y'all look to?
At the time, I took both inspo from old sort of like, or some of my older photos too, because some of my older photos I kind of wanted to like rework them, or at least like change something about them to make them more interesting to me or apply them to now. And I took a lot of inspiration too from seeing some of the other image makers like work, or at least some of their like final products, because I always could like go back to like some of the same people over and over and over again, just to see like, oh, like how do they tweak this, or like how do they like, I don't know, like how do they like compose this, or how do they actually like set up this sort of photo shoot. So it's like I can look at that and sort of like apply it to my work, or I can look at that and kind of like take inspiration from it, but I'll just do it in a way that like would make sense to me. So I'm obviously not like, copying them, but yeah.
I mean, now that's super valid, right? I hear how you guys over this last year have come together in developing your voices collectively and individually. It just sounds like it was a space for you guys to completely experiment and to build off of each other, right? What was the inspiration, or what were your sources of inspiration, Anju, Ariana, and Annette? What did y'all kind of refer to?
I think that a lot of what I kind of used to build up my project was also taken from like my friends around me who could share their own experiences and like their own relationships with the different stereotypes, like all different kinds of stereotypes that impact us. And I think that one specific artist that I guess I could point out is Cindy Sherman. We were studying her in school at the time, and I kind of wanted to create this like playful project that also kind of touched on more serious topics, and I think that her work does that really well, and that really helped me to kind of like find the right tone of my photographs, I guess.
Shout out Cindy Sherman, a legend.
Yeah, I could definitely add to that and completely echo Isai with looking at other image makers' work, because once again, starting from like the first images that we created and like seeing the final product and seeing how other people tweaked it was definitely something. I think for me also with this specific project, it was digital, and I haven't worked with digital. I haven't worked with digital since like 4 years. So I look towards Micheline Thomas. That's definitely one person in terms of like the colors and the vibrancy. And like Andrew was saying, to like what tone do I want to create? And that was very helpful to not only look outside of image makers and outside of the community that I do know, but also within it.
Some of the specific photographers that I referenced and took inspiration from were like David Sorrenti, Stephen Molina Contreras, Petra Collins, Mar Velez, Tyler Mitchell, Ewan Spencer, in terms of how they use lighting and color, which is a very important aspect of my own work. And Stephen Molina Contreras specifically, he tells a story of like his family and their ties to immigration. So he was sort of a direct inspo for our for like the crossover in our themes and subjects. Yeah.
That's tight, right? To be able to pull from all of the contemporaries around us and to then turn it into your own vision, right? I love the comment that y'all made about tone, right? Like, what tone do I want this to feel like? It almost sounds like in music, you add more color to your sound that adds depth, and that brings a certain emotion to it. And I see the vibrancy and color and depth across all of your work. So I want to take a moment right now just to open up the questions to the audience, and be able to engage in a little bit of discussion with them too, right? I'm just going to open up the Q&A. I guess the first one is by Viva Luz Austin, and they're saying it's not really a question, but a comment / compliment. I think you all succeeded in creating or holding space for people like you in your work. Specifically with both Anju and Ariana's project, I felt very represented as a Black GNC and femme person. Love, 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 right? So as we're talking about the response, right, to your work, literally y'all are creating an impact, right, with the way that y'all are celebrating and holding space for yourselves. So, right. The next one is by Amanda Williams, and the question is, did the pandemic play a role in centering your project / work? I think we had spoken to that as well, right? Like being in your rooms, right? Using what you have.
Yeah, I think that my photographs before have, like, prior to this, have been really about like exploring like all around me and finding myself through like the spaces that I'm in. But I think that the pandemic sort of really confined me to like Ariana said, a room and just myself. And it was my first project doing self portraits, so I think it was kind of very it was hard at times, definitely, but I think that it forced me to think deeply, and it was a really interesting experience for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna put out one more question. This is from Leslie Deshler-Kunosi. Shout out Leslie, another fellow faculty member, educator extraordinaire. And I love this, right? So the question is, how are you doing now, right? And what are you doing to take care of you in terms of self-care? Because I mean, y'all are the center of the work y'all are processing, and even today in a critique that I was a part of, I heard someone say you're wrestling with your story, right? And sometimes it might feel like that. So how are y'all holding space for yourselves outside of the photographic practice? What does self-care look like for you?
Okay. Thank you, Say. For me, I think self-care looks like going on walks and taking like my point and shoot and just listening to music, walking for an hour, going back home, taking a nap. I've also really been immersing myself in like a lot of films lately, and it's such a like enjoyable thing to be able to take notes on films and stuff. Yeah, I think that's what it looks like for me currently.
I was pretty much what I was gonna say as well too. A lot of the things that I do for fun, or at least a lot of things that I do to kind of like, I don't know, just like keep up with a hobby is photography. It's just like I think another way for me to just practice, or another way for me to kind of just, I don't know, like put out new work, or like, I don't know, just continuing doing something that I actually am passionate about. So yeah.
Yeah, same, 100% same. I think for me, specifically how it relates to like my relationship with creating things is not feeling bad or guilty for not creating. I feel like there's always this pressure in my head that I must be creating. I finished one project, now on to the next one. And I don't like that. And it makes me have, creates this weird connection between me and my work that I'm not connected to it anymore. So yeah, definitely taking a step back and also finding spaces for work that I've already created, sort of going into that. But yeah.
Absolutely. And Andrew, anything you'd like to?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar to Ariana. I think that like allowing space to figure out like who I am and explore also like my gender outside of photography in a way that's not so analytical but just focused on like how I'm feeling. Um, I think it's more of like a long-term investment in like myself um, instead of like a I have to analyze myself through my photographs all the time kind of thing.
That is like those are all such important reminders, right? I'm just gonna uplift what Jasmine had said in the comments. Um, right, all artists and creators need to be reminded that to take a step back, right? To just express themselves, to be themselves, to create without the pressures of needing to do so. I was gonna ask, right? What is any if you had any wisdom to impart on our viewers, right? As we wrap up today's conversation. I think you guys are. I mean, y'all have already dropped so much of it, but is there anything else you'd like to let our viewers know, right? As they're planning or going through their projects, or just any last reflections.
I think that something that I maybe wish that I had known is just to be open to be learning from everyone around you and sort of, taking other people's art and thinking about how it might impact you and also sort of being open to rethinking art and how you view art and different kinds of art and paving your own path. And there's no wrong answer.
I guess I
Absolutely.
would, oh, sorry. I guess I would say it's okay to be casual with your artwork. It's okay to kind of like not always, pretty much what Ariana said, and also what Anju said as well, where it's okay to just not always be working with your actual like photography, or at least whatever art medium you actually want to work on. It's okay to kind of just spend some time like working on like a smaller project, or working on like a random photo for the day. And even if you don't look at that photo for the next 5 or 6 years, it's okay, because you're still working on something, you're still producing something. It's just like, that's kind of, I don't know, like a way to go on, or a way to kind of just keep yourself active. I guess that's the only thing I would kind of say too, because I like being active in that regard, but it's okay to be casual. Like, you don't always need to do a bunch of things. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say to experiment, have fun, and like create the work that you want, we're all still young. We should be conceptualizing like cool things that we want. And, your imagination is the limit, I think. Your creativity is infinite, I believe. So yeah, have fun.
Absolutely. I mean, y'all gave yourselves the space to create, to experiment, to build off of each other, and then we saw the beautiful, powerful work that came out from your mind and your hearts. So thank you for that. So that pretty much just about, I think, wraps up our conversation for today. I think I'd like to once again thank you guys, the panelists, for your invaluable work, your perspectives. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed hearing their stories, and maybe that they have inspired your own. Each and every one of you have very important stories to tell, right? And so may you be encouraged to share it, to give yourselves the space to create, to give yourselves the space to exist, and to celebrate yourselves, and work on the truths that are yours. So thank you all for sharing this space with us today.
Thank you so much, Roy. Thank you to all the panelists, to Anju, Ariana, Annette, and Isai. I think listening to all of you, I was just really struck by kind of your wisdom of holding flexibility, holding kind of space to do like casual and fun work. And I'm just really struck by how much approaching your work with that open-mindedness and with that like sense of exploration is just like continuing to unfurl more really exciting things. So thank you all for sharing and for approaching your work in that way. Also want to thank Isa and Lacey and the entire ICP team. Thank you always for just bringing such amazing work and stories and artists to this space. Thank you all so much. I want to also just invite everyone in the audience to our next few youth photo panels. This is one of 4 photo panels. Our next 3 panels are going to be youth artist exchanges that are bringing together youth and adult photographers in conversation. Saturday, we have a panel featuring artists whose work looks outward to explore their communities and social issues within them. Next Wednesday, actually, Annette will be back with us in a panel with artists whose work reaches into their family and cultural roots to connect and redefine past, present, and future. And then our last panel will feature artists whose work looks inward towards their identities, loved ones, and home. And last but not least, on October 21st, we have Photoville Youth Day. It's an in-person field trip day for young people to come to Photoville. So please visit our website, sign up for all of these free opportunities, and we hope to see you all soon, virtually or in person at Photoville. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Like another round of applause for all these incredible panelists. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.